Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Atlantic Canada. Welcome to the second webinar in our series. Our series for Atlantic Canada exporters, and to talk about the online global program and grants. And today we're going to be focusing on online marketing. How can you best use online marketing for driving your business forward? So just while the last of you are logging on, let's start with some introductions. My name is Susanna Hardy, and I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online. And I'm really delighted to be here today to talk about online marketing. And I'm very, very pleased as well that our Senior Marketing Manager, Joelle Lazzarotto, has joined me today to give and share her experiences and her incredible, huge knowledge of international online marketing and how companies can really, really use these platforms to generate sales and leads and such. And we have it's a really packed webinar today, so we're going to get, chop right away, sort of, a quick pace. We also are joined by Erin Smith, the Program Manager for the CBDC and Program Manager for the Atlantic Canada Online Global Programs. And it's always such a treat to have Erin here. She is always so good-natured and humored and full of information, and always happy to help Canadian companies with anything that they need and that she can help with. So the Nova Scotia Association of CBDCs, Erin is the manager for the Atlantic Canada Online Global Programs. So that's someone that you need to jot down that email address to contact if you want to learn more about those programs. A quick word also about us as a company. Joelle and I, the company is called IBT Online. IBT Online, IBT stands for International Business and Technologies Online. We've been a company that's been going since about 2002, and we are 100% focused on online tools, providing online tools and online knowledge and online services for companies to go global. So we're focused on the international side of the world and on the online side of the world. So that's what we do. And we are very proud to be working with Atlantic Canada and the provinces there to help Atlantic Canada companies get more knowledge about these online tools and access them, build international websites for you, e-commerce enabled websites, all those kind of things that we'll talk about a little bit later in the webinar. As I said, we have a pretty packed agenda. We actually have, we divided into 7 sort of slots today, so it's a lot here. But you will all receive a recording of this webinar in your inboxes. So please do check your inboxes in a couple of days. It should be coming through. And anytime you want any further information, get back to us, ask us questions. That's what we're here for. You can also ask questions during the webinar, and we've left a little bit of time at the end to get those questions. So please don't hesitate. Drop your questions into the chat box, the question box or chat box, depending on where you are, and I'll get back to you at the end of it. This webinar will be in English, but please, if you're more comfortable in French, drop them in French, and we'll reply in French. We're happy to be in English or in French, whichever you want. Otherwise, there's the structure of today. We're going to briefly talk about sort of some of the big things that the Atlantic Canadian companies have provided for them by their provinces, and centered with Erin. And Erin's going to talk to you a bit about that. Then we're going to go straight into the online marketing side, seeing sort of a general picture, and then really a bit of a focus and drill down into what is a buyer persona and how do you map a buyer's journey? What does that actually mean, especially on international buyer's journey? Then a quick overview of some of the big major social media channels that exist out there. And then we're going to go into strategies. What does it mean to have a strategy? What is a calendar? How does that work? What is content mapping, and so on. And then we're going to talk about the more detail about the the Atlantic Canada Online Global Programs. And again, Erin can give you information about the grants as well. And then finally, takeaways, next steps, and Q&A. So drop in your questions. And with that, I think let's just start So Atlantic Canada, I'll call this a helping hand. We at IBT, we've been very struck by the fact that the Atlantic Canada provinces have gotten together and have really, really thought out on dedicated resources for you guys. So companies out there, use these resources. They've from Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, PEI, New Brunswick, Labrador, they're all really thinking about how best they can help their companies at the moment. And one of the ways they've done that is to get this online global programs set up that we work to deliver. So we have also set up a page, actually a dedicated page on our website, which is ibt.onl is our website, and there you can find the big Atlantic Canada Online Global Program details. These details will show you what the programs are, what it means to have an online presence, what it means to have a website, what are the options you can have, how many SKUs can you have on an e-commerce website, all those kind of details. One of the major parts of the dedicated resources are these webinars, and there are 9 in total. This is number 2 out of 9. If you've missed the first one, that was on Tuesday. That was about localized websites and localization. There's a recording of it. You can skip back to it. If you have questions on it, shout out. We'll reply. But we've got lots more coming, whether it's about, we've got one on e-commerce, we've got one on compliance, on Latin America, on Europe, GDPR, all those things coming. So please do check out that dedicated page, and that's where you can find all the webinars and log in and register for the webinars. So with that, I might just turn over to Erin to talk a little bit about the CBDCs and what the program means for them.
Thanks, Susanna. Yeah, the Community Business Development Corporation, CBDC for short, that's who I'm with, and we are the delivery agent for this project that's hosting these webinars. And I'll note that the funding support for this is made possible through the Atlantic Trade and Investment Growth Agreement. That's a partnership of the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency and the 4 Atlantic provincial governments. I think we've got representatives on the line today from all of those various government departments. And I'd encourage you, if you've got any questions about programs, support, anything in terms of information on exporting, reach out to them. They've got lots of information they can provide. If you're not sure who that person is in your region, send me a note and I can connect you to the right person. Our goal for these webinars is to equip you with the skills that you need to successfully export online. COVID-19 has really amplified the need for online selling, and we're hoping that the tools that we're introducing can make that task a bit easier for you. Like Susanna said, we've got lots of webinars coming up, and I encourage you to sign up for all of those. I'm also going to mention the kind of second component of the online global programs. We did talk about that in depth on Tuesday, if you want to go back and watch that webinar if you missed it, but it's funding support up to $15,000 that will help toward the cost of localizing your website. So more than just translating it into the language of that particular market, it's making sure it's hosted in the right, in that country, that it's got the right keywords and optimized for the search engines of that particular market. So we've got 20 spots that are available. We're accepting applications. It's an application-based process, and that will be open until the end of this webinar series, which I believe is December the 15th. And I'll get Susanna to put in the chat sometime during the webinar the link for that application if you're interested in that. And I'll be here through to the end of the webinar, so at the end, if you've got any questions, you can put those in the chat and I can answer those. Perfect. That's everything that I needed to cover. Susanna?
Thank you, Erin. So Erin will be joining us also for Q&A. She'll be here. So do put in questions if you have specific questions for Erin as well. And we will put that link into the chat box. You can all have that link. If I can get my mouse to work, we will do that. Here we go. So let's start then by just talking about sort of painting a bit of a picture. Now, I went through some of these slides already on Tuesday, but bear with me. I'm going to go through them fast, and I think that they're relevant for this webinar as well. So the first thing I wanted to say was that online tools are all about generating sales. There are a lot of motivations for getting international websites, online marketing, and so on. And they usually are about things like, brand awareness, lead generation, helping in-market distributors, things like that. What it all comes down to is how to generate sales. And I think Erin said it very well. And COVID-19 has amplified the need and the urgency to get these kind of tools for all companies everywhere. And looking at some of the big numbers about who's online these days and how many people are online, there's been a massive growth as well in 2020. But even before COVID, more than half the world was online for most of the day. October 2020 numbers show you that 4.66 billion people on the planet are online for an average of nearly 7 hours a day. So most people are online most of their working day, put it that way. And it's still growing even now, even at these levels. And social media, note, is growing faster than online use. So the number of people who went online for this year so far in 2020, equivalent to the population of the United States, it's 320 million people. 450 million people have joined social media this year. Again, very strong numbers. So the communication part of the online world is really growing and very, very, very specific. It's a very mobile-enabled market and action. It is, and you'll see some of the slides later. You'll see how much the social media now is used as a search engine. It's used as a direct sales vehicle for many, many markets. So all this stuff just reinforces the notion of using social media to communicate better. So I said 4.66 billion people are online, 4.14 billion people are using social media in the world. So 53% of the world's population is using social media. And if we just look on where that is on a continuum of different countries, you can see, Canada, 66% of the people on total population are using social media. This is a bit behind the USA, which is 69%, but it's far behind many, many, many dynamic markets, particularly places like Latin America, Mexico, Colombia. All those places are well into the 70s. The Middle East is incredibly plugged in and reactive in terms of social media. There's some stats, by the way. For example, in the Middle East, I think something like nearly 40% of social media users say they transact business via social media platforms as well. So, we might be used to going onto a website and checking it out and then going to Amazon and buying something, or if you're a B2B, a direct B2B e-commerce platform. But in many, many markets, you would actually go onto WhatsApp or a WeChat or an Alipay, for example, and transact in that way, but you'd be doing it via social media. So that's one of the things I wanted to really just highlight here. And I guess this is a similar sort of conclusion we had last time. Why do you need online business development tools? You need it because everybody is online. The world is online. And if you are going to connect, engage, build the trust you need for that buyer experience, you need to have the tools to reach people everywhere in the world. And to do that, you need websites, you need marketing. So I guess this is good news. And that's what I also wanted to highlight. This is good news for Atlantic Canadian companies. You know where your clients are and you know how to reach them. That's the good part. And this is not just for B2C companies, please. Social media is absolutely essential for the B2B world. In even the B2G world, the business to government world, it's really important to have a social media strategy and to have the localized websites that form the base of any social media strategy. So with that, I'm going to turn to Joelle, and we're going to talk a little bit about the buyer persona and the buyer's journey. Joelle?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susanna, and thank you for having me here today. Excited to join you all. So looking at the marketing strategy, one of the most important parts of your marketing strategy, and a part that you really need and want to get right from the beginning, is defining your buyer persona. because if you try to accelerate your sales process without knowing who you're selling to, you might end up accelerating into a dead end. So as HubSpot themselves define it, a buyer persona is a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customers based on market research and real data about your existing customers. So defining a buyer persona is really important. It allows you to make sure that you're always reaching the right person at the right time with the right message, saving yourself a ton of time and resources. So buyer persona really helps you determine who your ideal customer is, and understanding who you want to reach will then guide you in a variety of ways, from choosing the right social media platforms to use, to creating the best mix of content to share, to then being able to target advertising to the right audiences. So when you think about who your buyer persona would be, you can start by thinking about what language they speak, their age, where they live, their income, what they buy, and much more. So how do you figure this out? Where do you start? The first step is looking at your ideal corporate profile. So this will help you define the buyer persona. Your buyer persona is not the same as your ideal customer profile. So it's a category. You need to go deeper to what we would call a subcategory, for example. So your ideal corporate profiles and buyer personas are different, but they are linked. So you could have an ideal corporate profile that has a few personas that your marketing team creates content for example, and your sales team will then feel comfortable speaking to. So for example, a B2B in advanced manufacturing, the CEO takes the ultimate decision, but this is also based, is basing his line-specific engineer, head of sales and marketing, research analyst. Each of them have their own problems, so they're looking for a solution themselves. So if you're in a B2B sales, your ideal customer profile will define which companies are a good fit for you. But then your buyer persona will define the people within those companies that you need to work with. So each persona fits in the ideal customer profile. Each buyer persona will have specific question, concerns, and role within those buyer personas. Here I just wanted to share a great example from Zipcar. They have such a clear idea of who the buyer persona is that they've really just drilled it down in the mission statement. But on the next slide, here we have a few questions where you could start, and you should really try and ask yourself, what are the buyer persona? Are they different from my export market to my domestic market? How do they find me? What do they care about? So examples here from L'Oreal, who are a frequently cited company for how spot on they are with their international marketing. So if you look at this picture and the text, this is L'Oreal assuring the US stylists that they're trying to support them whilst everyone is socially distancing, and the majority of stylists are still closed or just reopening and struggling a little bit. But on the next example, in Australia, for example, the message is totally different. There is no mention of COVID-19, but instead they're still focusing on the climate, and this is most likely due to the horrible fires Australia suffered just a few months ago. So that is what matters to them at that point in time. And in the last example, we still have L'Oreal demonstrating to their Brazilian consumers that they're doing their part to help the people of Brazil by producing hand sanitizer, which is a product they wouldn't normally produce. So this is just an example to showcase how each buyer persona is clearly different and their messaging is respectful of that. So once we have our buyer persona defined, then we can start figuring out what their buyer journey looks like. So the buyer's journey is the active research process someone goes through, which leads to the purchase. It's a fundamental part of your marketing strategy because it really is a framework that you can use to understand your buyer's need and provide the information they need to reach their goal. So every interaction your persona has with your business should be tailored to where they are on this buyer's journey. So every potential buying is focused on identifying the problem or the awareness stage, understanding what options could alleviate the problem, the consideration stage, and comparing the top choices when they're ready to make a purchase, decision stage. So here, remember that your buyer persona differs across different markets, and that's why you need to localize your website and have a localized social media strategy to make sure that you're engaging with the local buyer persona in the way they're expecting and in the way they want. So on the next slides, I just wanted to bring an example from a Facebook campaigns we're running for a client of ours, just to show how important it is to fully understand your buyer persona and what the buyer's journey looks like, to be able to really understand how your marketing campaigns are going. So this is an example from a campaign we run where we are promoting a blog, so same content on Facebook with similar imagery and messaging, although of course localized and staying relevant to local audiences here in Mexico and in the UK. So if we look at the results at the beginning for the specific blog post for the UK, we saw over 1,200 engagements, and we were super pleased with that. But then you look at Mexico, engagements, wow, over 20,400. So if we stop our analysis at this point, we could quite simply infer that our campaign in Mexico worked much better, right? Not necessarily. Again, you need to really make sure that you drill down and you understand how your buyer persona engages with your content, engage with your marketing, posting, your marketing activities, to be able to then understand how they're working. So here, for example, we said a lot more engagement from Mexico. You can see here in the blue and the red bar. But then when we look at a real engagement, so who went and filled out a request a contact form, who went and contacted the local distributors, they seem to, the numbers are very similar. So we know that, for example, in Mexico, we need to get a much higher level of engagement to get that lead generation. Whereas in the UK, our buyer persona doesn't necessarily give out as much engagement on Facebook, but once they land on the website, they convert a lot better and they are more reactive. So it's just making sure that you understand how they engage with you and how you want to engage with them. And now I'm going to turn to Susanna to look at some of the big international social media channels.
Thank you, Joelle. And I think that's an amazing example of, same campaign, different buyer personas, and therefore perhaps a different buyer's journey through that campaign as well. But before we start drilling down into the different social media channels, I'd like to launch a quick poll. I would like to ask you all, if are you already using online marketing? Are you doing that internationally, domestically? Are you still thinking about it, sitting on the fence? Where are you in all that? I can tell you a little bit. I'm starting to get more than half of you voted already now. Oh gosh, I sound like the U.S. election. Basically, about half of you are already using social media domestically, and I'd say a good third are using it internationally as well as domestically. So well done, you guys. That's fantastic, and thank you all very much, or most of you anyway, for filling out the poll. There'll be 2 more little polls later on, and so you can keep your mice handy. Thank you. I'm going to close that poll, but that's really interesting. And great to see that nearly a third, just a third of you are already using social media domestically and internationally. Well done. So close that poll. Make sure my mouse works again. And now I'm going to start talking about international social media channels. I'm going to zip through this bit quickly, basically because there are just so many different types of channels. But we thought and platforms, we thought we'd at least highlight the biggest ones and make sure that we're all talking about some of the very biggest ones that we know. I guess for us, any kind of like social media marketing, and this is very much on the social media side of the marketing, you have to go through these big channels, these big platforms, whether it's WeChat or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. But it is a very quick and direct way to engage on a one-on-one basis with your prospects. The trick is to do it well. If you do it badly, it tarnishes your brand. So you have to do it well. And I think what's definitely having a mouse problem today, but here we go. I think what's interesting as well is seeing how global these platforms are. We said 4.14 billion people are using social media in the world today, across the world. The big blue that you see on this map is Facebook. And so this is a map of the first social media platform in each one of those countries. Obviously, the big exceptions are China, where Facebook is, Facebook's not really allowed, and in Russia, where you have the big local players for that. It's interesting though to see this map here, a second map, where you see what's the second largest platform, and there it changes quite dramatically. You know, you get a lot more Instagrams, Reddit, very popular in Canada, Odnoklassniki in Russia. So there's, you know, different platforms. And I guess I wanted to highlight with this the fact that you need to choose which platform. It's really important to choose which platform you use. Otherwise, you're going to spread resources too thinly and not have an effective campaign and strategy. So you choose which platform fits your buyer persona in which market, and then focus on that. And trick is always to have, and Joelle will talk more about this in strategies, but the trick is always to have a real laser focus, not a shotgun approach. So some of the biggest ones, you know, Facebook, world leader, you know, social media dominance. And particularly if you think that they own, you know, they own WhatsApp, Instagram, and they got Facebook Messenger as well. All that combined, there's a lot of double counting in that. A lot of that, if you buy each one of those channels, it's about 4.4 billion people that they can reach one way or another. But what's important that we want to highlight here is that Facebook is localized. In other words, they have, you know, the Facebook that you see in Germany is not necessarily the same as the Facebook you see in Canada. You know, think of it this way: Facebook exists in over 100 different languages. And they curate and they do everything according to how they think that person in that country is going to interact with them best and most. So, you know, it's important to figure out which type of Facebook and where you want to be on Facebook for that. Facebook's single largest market is India in the world. Then comes the US, then comes Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico, and so on. And the example that Joelle just gave you on Facebook for Mexico can show you how incredibly engaged some markets are with social media. I mean, the Mexican market there compared to those frosty Brits, you know, they really engage fast. What's interesting as well, some of those markets are pretty not too expensive either in terms of word count for Google Ads. YouTube is another huge platform, social media platform that marketeers absolutely need to use. It is the second most visited website in the world. And it is probably the one that is also most used by B2B. 80% of YouTube watches are outside the United States, by the way, for that. And I think I also wanted to highlight that YouTube is increasingly seen as a search engine. It's owned by Google, but you know, you go onto YouTube to find things. You go onto YouTube and you click, where's the best pizzeria in Halifax, or, you know, how do I install a new whatever it is, or and that you go onto YouTube to find things in the same way that you would a search engine for that. I also wanted to point out just 9% of US small businesses use YouTube. I couldn't find the stats for Canada, but maybe you should ask yourselves, as an Atlantic Canadian company, are you using YouTube? And if not, should you? It's a great platform for social media, really great platform for it. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very strong platform as well, especially for B2B companies. In the US and Canada, it is seen very much as an employment channel platform. In the rest of the world, it's also seen as that, careers platform, but it's also seen as a place to spread messages about your company and to post blogs, to post, and particularly to engage with distinct groups, like, you know, engineers who are interested in this, or lobster fishermen in the world. You can find groups like that on LinkedIn, which is very useful for engaging with. Again, the largest user is the US, but outside the US, the largest users, India, China, Brazil, UK, France, and so on. So again, a very important platform for you. You know, a couple of, you know, the fun facts that I mentioned there, 3 times more effective than Facebook in terms of, and Twitter, than lead generation. because it does go directly to your target audience in that sense. And it has had one of the biggest upsurges since COVID in terms of use for that. It's up about 55% this year. I wanted to highlight Instagram as well, only because if you're in the B2C market, but also sometimes B2B, it is an amazingly flexible and a great platform to use. There are 3 different ways of using it, either a feed, a story, or mini videos. It has a very high engagement rate, something like in terms of the, I think it's 1 in every 4 people on Instagram say they follow companies on it too. For that, and something like 50%, nearly 50% of users make purchases based on the brands, based on Instagram. Again, a really interesting way of very, very plastic, very, very flexible. The feed or blogs for stories or little tiny videos, which is great. Just finally highlighting China, because it is, if you're interested in the Chinese market, it is a totally different environment. That's nothing to do with anywhere else. So, YouTube is banned in China. You can't have YouTube. So you have to have a Chinese platform. For example, Youku is probably the one that you'll use most. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible to break into for a Canadian company. You can have a social media strategy for China. It works well. And indeed, if you're looking at the Chinese market, they would expect you to be on Weibo, for example, and eventually even on WeChat, which is the real goal for that. So there you go. That's a very brief landscape picture of it, and I'm going to pass back to Joelle to talk a bit more about the strategies for social media and social media marketing and online marketing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susanna. Perfect. So diving straight into that, I wanted to start with an example of some localized blog posts that we created and promoted as part of a marketing campaign and their strategy for Bullman products. So the vibe persona for them has been very clearly defined. Actually, it's been drilled down to quite a fine level. So it's not just teachers, but primary school teachers. So Bullman products sell to art suppliers. They are a paper cut company. They sell to art suppliers, and they want to generate interest in the product in the end client. So the teachers who uses the product in the classroom. So this is what we mean when we say the method was to drive top funnel traffic to the blog. So this blog was used in the UK, but it was also localized and specifically targeted to the German market, as Easter is a big event there with traditional egg painting and lots of other crafts, especially for the kids. So what's important here and why I wanted to highlight this as the start of this strategy piece, as we'll break it down, what you need to take into account, is how important it is to have a clearly defined objective and a strategy for everything that you do in terms of your social media, but also digital marketing as a whole. So in this case, a perfect example of how much, how this content fit into a predefined framework. But before you get started designing and launching your international marketing strategy, there is one crucial step. Make sure you do your keyword research. I know there's been mention of this and a bit more explanation on the Tuesday webinar on website localization, but this is very much important for your marketing strategy as well. And here is an example of why doing and periodically reviewing your keyword research is key. So in this example, we have 2 similar words in Brazilian Portuguese and Portuguese used in Portugal, where to refer to the term train, Brazilian Portuguese would use trem, whereas in Portugal use convoio. So this is vital for search engine advertising, for example. You need to make sure that you're using the same language and the exact same language your target audience, your buyer persona, are using when they're searching, if you want to rank high and if you want to be found. If you were to target your Brazilian buyer persona by using the term convoio, then you probably limit yourself to a 5% of that audience. But this is also paramount for any content you create. And with content, I mean blogs, but also social media posts. So that short snippet of text that you include is really all the audience has to make a decision, maybe even unconsciously, on whether they will engage or not with your post and then land on your website. So we mentioned before, using native-like language will help in building that trust, that brand recognition, as your content will feel local, relevant, genuine, creating that very important local user experience. And by creating this native-like experience, you can increase engagement, boost your brand lift, as the user won't really think about your post as spam or as an ad. It will feel engaging, and they will then click on it and land on your website. Before getting started, there is one more crucial piece of the social media or the social media promotion puzzle, which is aligning your social strategy to your business objectives. When designing any part of your marketing strategy, it's important to always be aligned with the overall business strategy. This will give you the starting point to decide what you want to achieve, and consequently how you're going to monitor this, or what metrics should you really focus on. In this example, as your business goal, we want to focus your social media goals. They should be SMART, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. In this example, I just wanted to show, for example, taking a social media here as an example, you see how within a singular platform, let's say Facebook in this example here, you can already tailor your activity to your goals and your overall objectives of your business. And once you set your objective, you always define what success would mean and how you will then measure it. So remember, obviously, to make the goals realistic for your international market, and this can be especially important as you build up your brand recognition and the trust that is so needed in that buyer journey we discussed earlier. So in the next slide, before you can start designing, just wanted to show you some example of what KPIs you would want to track to really make sure that you measure your success and you measure your return on investment. So here you need to think about your goals, and this will then inform you what metrics are important to you, and those are the ones that you should be focusing on, looking at improving and monitoring. Once this is set up, don't forget to keep an eye on them, analyze your results, and if needed, make changes. The beauty of digital marketing is that you can make changes and those take effect fairly quickly. So be proactive, especially during these times of changes. It's very important to make sure you're always looking at the full picture. Before going into a little bit deeper, I thought it'd be helpful or useful just to remind ourselves what organic really means. So it means unpaid, to put it simply. Organic is not limited to search engine optimization, so how your Google would rank your website, depending on the different search engine you're using. But you can also have organic social media posting, for example. In fact, it has to be a key component of a good digital marketing and social media strategy, as you want to build up that credibility, the brand authority, and the community of like-minded people over time. Traditionally, inbound marketeers have avoided paid search as it was viewed as an outbound method for marketing. But with social media ads and tools like HubSpot ads, it's becoming far more common for the two to work together. Realistically, it takes 3 to 6 months to start gathering a community of organic followers to your page, and most people just don't want to wait that long. Paid ads can really help you get visitors to your website today, and also help speeding up the process of optimizing your landing pages. So this would ensure higher conversions, which will then pay off exponentially in the long run. So if you're weighing the pro and cons of organic versus paid, sit down with your team and examine your timeline and budget. If you're looking for the quickest result, paid is better. But if you're looking for the most cost-effective results, and especially for long-term results, the answer becomes a little bit less clear-cut. Whilst organic posting is more cost-effective in the long run, with the right tweak into your campaign, attention to your landing page optimization, doing the right keyword research, paid ads can actually be very cost-effective as well. We actually would recommend a combination of organic and paid. The one boosts the other. So here is just a quick example from, again, one of our clients, really just to show how organic and paid. And here we have Google and Facebook campaigns running both organically and through promoted ads. They really work in symbiosis to help your brand gain share of voice and visibility. So if we look at this example, by working across channels, paid and organic, they doubled their impression share in 12 months, reaching nearly 3 million views per month. And here you can see how Google and Facebook really support your organic reach on Google, and it grows exponentially over time. Okay, now we've identified our platforms, we've analyzed our buyer persona, we know who we're trying to reach, and we have set our goals. It's time to start posting. So as for every marketing channel, social media requires a structured approach to ensure that you're always reaching the right people with the right messages at the right time. So your content should also lead visitors and prospects down that sales funnel, or that buyer's journey that we looked at before. Your website can have a variety of content addressing different questions or concerns depending on where that specific prospect is on that journey, from awareness to purchase to advocacy. For example, a blog is a great tool for building awareness, educating and answering general questions about your services or your industry in general. But for a prospect who is now evaluating your firm for hire, a case study, a testimonial might be more appropriate to really demonstrate successful work that you have done for your clients and help them reach that decision stage. So all this just to say that with a solid strategy, each piece of content on your website will have a specific purpose and a specific target audience. People use the internet to conduct research, discover information on a variety of topics and through a variety of channels. Could be Google, could be Facebook, could be YouTube. So be sure to use your content as an opportunity to educate your prospects about trends and common questions in the industry, and for those further down the sales funnel, your company, processes and services. And social media is a great place to give your content visibility. So use it to attract more users to your pages, helping them always reach the right page for the buyer journey on your website. So here we were looking at how this can be broken down into 3 stages: awareness, consideration and decision stage. So when designing your strategy, it's very important that you take into account what content you will create or you already have, and when do you want to share it and promote it for which part of the journey. So remember, the content doesn't have to directly tie back to one of your products or services, especially in the awareness stage. Your audience would really appreciate the helpful information, but more importantly, they quickly start to embrace the relationship with your brand, seeing it as helpful and providing useful content. And then when it comes time to make a purchase, you will be top of mind as a trusted partner. So just as different topics work for 3 stages of the customer journeys, so does different type of content that your audiences like to use. So here I just wanted to show a couple of examples of how you can use content that you might already have on your website and repurpose it for the same, with the same content, but in a different format. So for example, you have a blog that is performing really well on your website. Why not turn that into an infographic to be shared through Instagram or some more visual social media platform, really giving your buyer persona, your audience, the opportunity to engage with your content in a way that they like the most. Okay, so now we know what content you have, where is mapped, who is it targeted, is now the big question now really is, how do you use this? How do you share it? How do you promote it? So having a content calendar, and this could look up the year ahead, the quarter, the month, or whatever timeline suits your business model or your sales cycle. This will help you structure your thoughts and make sure that the delivery of your content and this strategy is always coherent. When organizing content calendars for an international audience, especially, there are a couple of extra questions you need to ask yourself. What platforms is my audience using? Are they on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram? Who am I trying to reach with this specific post or with this specific piece of content, as we just saw? What exactly do I want them to do next? Do I have a call to action? Where on the website do I want to redirect them on? So now you might be asking yourself, do I need to do this for every platform I'm on social media, for every piece of content I have on my website? Do we need to create new content for every buyer persona in every market? Well, the good news is that if you have great content you created for your website, there might be light at the end of the tunnel. Repurposing content is a very effective way to make the most of each piece of content you have already created. So I would identify a couple of types of repurposing. So you can have your new localized content on your international website ready to be repurposed for use across social media. So use the blog, promote it on social media, bring people back to read more about it, and then add call to action, allowing them to navigate through your website, really helping them get started with this buyer's journey. And to give you an idea of how we can bring all of what we've discussed together, so objective, goals, KPIs, social media channels together, here I just wanted to share a couple of case studies from our clients. So in this slide, we feature a blog that we have localized for clients in the UK and the Latin American markets, where in these examples here, we have our objectives were to drive top to mid funnel traffic to the blog, helping us to boost organic keyword searches. And what we were looking for was how many page views we then had on the landing page, so how many users would read the blog. And then we would track some events like how many people would then call in to ask for more information, how many people would send them an email, and how many people would message us through Facebook or click an outbound link to visit the distributor site, for example. Perfect. Now I've given you a lot of content in a short period of time, but I just wanted to add one more thing when we talk about social media is, to me, is crucial. Social media is a fantastic space to build relationships and, as we mentioned, build that trust with your prospects and why not your current customers in those markets. But if you're active on social media, make sure you engage with your followers. Invite them to like your page, but most importantly, answer their comments, answer the mention. Social media listening can be a very powerful tool to engage with your follower and really understand what people are saying about your brand online, internationally, in those target markets. So build that relationship. Don't just post and walk away. See how people interact, respond to messages, and start that conversation that will help you build that relationship with them. Perfect. So just to wrap up, I thought I'd outline a few best practices. So get your localized website to act as a local springboard for your online marketing. Get to know your audience, your buyer persona, and their journey. Choose which platforms are really worth your resources. As Susanna mentioned, don't spread yourself too thinly at the beginning. You can always add as you go, but start from, once you know your buyer persona, you will know which platforms would make the most sense for you. Set your goals and monitor them. Answer all the comments and mention. Listen to your buyers and to your prospect. Look, analyze, keep learning from what you see, and don't stop. See your strategy through, and you'll see the results will come in.
Thank you, Joelle. All of social media wrapped up into one webinar. Like I said, we are going quickly, and there's a lot here. We're now going to turn a little bit to an explanation of the Atlantic Canada Online Global programs and what your provinces have put in place for you, and how we think that these tools could help. As Aaron said, there are 20 slots, so 20 lucky companies in Atlantic Canada will be able to get this program and the grants that go with it. I said earlier, the main reason why people get websites, online marketing, is generate sales. Long term, it's brand awareness. In other words, and brand awareness means long-term sustainable growth and sales lead generation. So this, but there's lots of smaller reasons as well, or sort of minor and secondary reasons and motivations for it. And one of the biggest ones we find, for example, is helping in-market partners. If you've got a really good distributor in Mexico, give them a tool, a business development tool that will really work for them. Give them a Mexican website. So that's a thing. The other point that we have, that we hear often from clients, is this need to control and manage your image, your online real estate, your online brand. If you've let your distributors use your brand a lot, and in many ways, it's going to be difficult then to make sure that you have brand guidelines, that they're enforced, that you control that online presence. So let's talk about the program itself. There are basically three options that have been defined in the Atlantic Canada Online Global. The first one, option A, is for either one or two markets that you can have. Like you can choose China and Mexico, the USA and Saudi Arabia, the Philippines and Australia, wherever it is you want, or one market if you prefer. But the point is that the scope of it is defined already. So it's got a defined scope, that many pages, that many words, and so on. And it's pretty flexible within that scope. You can have whatever, a lot of different types of plugins and so on. But there's that many pages, that many words. If that scope is too restricted for you, then let's talk about option B, which is I've called multiple market, but really it's a customized market expansion. So if you say I need a website that integrates into my CMS, it has a total website redesign as well for the international markets, whatever it is, you define the scope, and that's option B. And option E is basically e-commerce enabled. So those are the three options. Let's go through them with a little bit more detail. Option A, as I said, either a 1 or 2 market expansion. And here, the predefined scope is 12 pages or 24 pages, 2,000 words per website, or 4,000 words if you're doing the 1. But in each case, you get absolutely best practice, country-specific, totally optimized, and totally localized websites for your target markets. So these are very strong tools that you can have for that. There are grants available. The budget is 16,000, and Erin has talked about the grants that are available for that. Option B, as I said, is a more customized market expansion. I got the title right this time. The budget really depends on the scope of work and what sort of plugins you want, how the functionality of it, how big it is, and so on. But it's typically for companies as well who's saying, look, I want something that's perhaps a stronger design element in my international websites. I need to have certain plugins from my distributors, perhaps a safe zone as well, a login area. So those would be sort of an option B. And as I said, there is the budget just depends upon the scope of work, but it's all very clearly laid out, and there are the grants available for that. So I want to run a quick. I sort of want to ask you guys, do you want to learn more about the website localization and particularly the Atlantic Canada Online Global Programs A and B? So is this something that interests you? Would you like to get more information on it? Should we circle back to you and get you more information on the funding, on what we mean by customization, what we mean by predefined scope, all the detail of it? Please let us know, and we'd be happy to either circle back or email you with more information as well. So if you just say, yes, get in touch with me or whatever, we'll send you an email and set up a meeting. And or thinking about it. And I must say thank you very, very much for that enthusiastic response. Close that poll now. And talk about the third option in the Atlantic Canada Online Global Program, which is basically for e-commerce enabled websites. And we do have a specific webinar coming up only about e-commerce as well. So if you have an interest in e-commerce, please sign up to that. We'll be going through a lot of strategies for e-commerce, international e-commerce. So this really depends on the size and functionality of an e-commerce website, but a fully optimized, localized, best practice e-commerce website, small, that's 20 pages, 100 SKUs, so it's not that small, is 16,000. And as Erin said, there are grants available for that as well. Medium, large goes up proportionally, and then there's even an extra large somewhere, I think, if you're beyond that, but not that many companies have, way more than 500 SKUs. And these, again, are for any markets you want in the world. So, you say, I want that in Japan. Fine, no problem. Do that. I'm going to pass over now to Erin just to round out that details on the Online Global Program, and then some Q&A. I'm happy to see some Q&A coming in. Erin, did you want to just cut up?
Thanks. Yep, just kind of to follow up on those options, if you're interested, we do have that funding available up to $15,000. So for instance, if you wanted option E large, we'd still cap out at the 15,000, and then the residual would be up to the company to cover. And the application process is open through to the end of the webinar series on the 15th of December. Please fill out our application online. It should be in the chat. Hopefully there it is there on the screen as well to sign up for that.
Thanks, Erin. Okay, I'm trying to get the link that you sent in the chat box and send it to everybody. Maybe Joelle, you could do that for me. Doesn't seem to want to work for me. A couple of takeaways and the Q&A. Just summarizing. First of all, why we think Atlantic Canadian companies need online business development tools. It is because you will be found, be understood, do business anywhere, all the time, 24/7. The world is online. You need to be online too. There are dedicated resources for you, starting with these webinars, for example. There's a whole page on our website just for Atlantic Canada, and where you can find all of those these webinars, plus more detail about the program and applications. Quick note on best practices for online marketing. Just summarizing Joelle's marathon social media in a nutshell. And then I guess finally, just to reiterate sort of the Atlantic Canada Online Global programs to help you grow internationally, reach new clients, generate sales. That's what it's all about. So in terms of next steps, please do check out the webinars. Please, register for the webinars. I hope they are a useful tool for you. Engage with us if we're not answering questions. If you want to have more detail about something, let us know. We're always happy to help. Then we suggest you get your team around the table and say, should we do this? If so, get in touch. And it's as simple as that. So now I'm going to turn to questions, and there's a bunch of questions coming in. Right, I'm going to start with, actually, there's a couple actually for you, Joelle. Joelle, if you don't mind. Joelle, how often should I review keywords?
Unfortunately, this is not something you do once and then you can forget about them. Especially if you're using keywords for search engine advertising, social media advertising. I say best practice is to review them every 3 to 5 months, once a quarter, let's say, ideally. I know it's not always easy, but best practice.
Thank you. A question which actually we have the same question actually on Tuesday, which is about migrating websites, localized websites, international websites, migrating those over time into an e-commerce site. And I just want to say, yes, that's something we can easily do, and that's something that we regularly do for clients as well. Just making sure that, please tell us in the start, please tell us at the very beginning. Then we can set it up in terms of all the plugins and everything that you need to have for that. A couple of more questions. Joelle, here's one for you. Do I need a separate Facebook page for every international market?
That's one very good question, and unfortunately the answer is it depends. If you have a very strong international presence, maybe you've been gathering followers on your Canadian page for some time, then you might want to continue using your page and continue really reaching that audience. The good news is that Facebook, for example, you can be very geo-targeted, so you could post updates and content that is ring-fenced to a specific audience. But if you're really starting from anew and you want to really show a dedicated presence in Latin America, in Mexico, then having a dedicated in-language page that would really allow you to gather all of that great content in language that's relevant to them and build that community is also a great option. So it really depends on your starting point and what you're trying to achieve.
A last question, Joelle, just because I'm conscious of time. How often do you think it takes how often typically to get traction in any new market using social media marketing?
Again, if you are relying solely on organic marketing, as I mentioned, it can take 3 to 6 months to start generating, using hashtags to get your content out there, and then use your local partners to showcase your content. But if you're willing to spend a little bit of money and put some budget behind some social media advertising, it can be very, very quick, and you can start receiving interactions and new followers very quickly. I want to say immediately, but I don't want to overpromise.
Great. I think I've managed to put, or maybe Joelle, you managed to put the website localization application in English and French in the chat box.
I hope so. People can give a heads up if you can see them. There should be links there for you guys to click on.
Yeah, and we'll include them in the next webinars. I'm conscious of time. I wanted to thank Erin for joining us and for providing great logistic support, and she's the go-to person if you've got questions about how do I do this, where's the application, who do I contact. But you can also contact us at any time as well. I wanted to thank my colleague Joelle for taking the time to help me and share her experiences with in online marketing and things. And then most of all, I want to thank the Atlantic Canadian companies for joining us today. I know you're all webinared out, tired of this Zoom business, and but real great pleasure that you all came today. We're impressed. Thank you very much indeed. And then we hope to come and see you guys all soon. It'd be nice to stroll around PEI beaches and and then meet up in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and such, and Newfoundland to meet you all and talk about online tools and how best we can help for that. Finally, we just hope we'll see you at the next webinar. In the meantime, stay well, stay safe, and happy exporting, happy trading. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Right, bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.